When it comes to action games such as Elden Ring, God of War, Spider-Man, Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy, and so on, arguably the most important aspect of these games is the combat. For me personally, if your game has an amazing story but your gameplay is buns, I'm not playing it. There are plenty of games out there with amazing combat systems, but no game does it quite like this one. Sekiro's combat is genuinely leagues above every other game I've played. Everything just flows together so well, and it's very fun when you actually get the hang of it. But it will also have you wanting to absolutely obliterate your monitor. One of my favorite things about this game is that most of the bosses feel fair and the gameplay involves a lot of clean back and forth, instead of it feeling like you're fighting this absolute brick wall. A unique thing about Sekiro is that every enemy in the game has two bars which act as their health, those being the health and posture bar. Any enemy in the game can be killed by either reducing their health to 0 or increasing their posture bar to max. Though like 99% of your kills will be from posture, it's still an option. Another thing is that these two bars actually directly influence each other. The lower the boss's health is, the slower that they will recover their posture while in neutral, coming to a complete stop when low enough, making killing the boss without reducing their health first harder, but possible with an aggressive playstyle, which is where the skill aspect comes in. You see, unlike in other Souls games where the main mechanic of avoiding damage is rolling, in Sekiro it's actually parrying or deflecting. Parrying is effective against every enemy in the game, with the sole exception of the Demon of Hatred, of course. The reason why deflecting is so important is because each attack you deflect slightly increases the enemy's posture bar and prevents you from taking chip damage from said attack. The more deflects done in succession, the more posture damage each deflect does, meaning that you're basically damaging the boss even when it's not your turn to attack. The deflect window is pretty forgiving in my opinion, making guard mashing actually viable in this game. Though for every attack you deflect, your posture also slightly increases, up until there's one hit away from breaking. A useful thing to note is that your posture cannot be broken from deflecting an attack, meaning no matter how many attacks you deflect while your posture is at its limit, it won't break, which is extremely useful for an aggressive playstyle since you'll constantly be attacking or defending and won't really have time to recover your posture. But if you fail to deflect even one attack, your posture will be broken, and depending on the attack, it could be fatal. Aside from deflecting, there are a few other ways of increasing the enemy's posture bar, one of these being the Mikiri counter. The Mikiri counter is personally my favorite thing to land in this entire game. You can't tell me that stepping on your opponent's weapon mid-thrust is not tough. Mikiri counter is one of the two counters for unblockable attacks in this game, which are signaled by the red symbol above your head. The other counter is a head stomp, which works against sweeping attacks. Just like the Mikiri counter, this one is satisfying to land, but not as much as the Mikiri counter. There are other unblockable attacks in the game, but you just gotta pray you guessed right to avoid those. Moving on from defense, increasing the enemy's posture while on offense is pretty straightforward. When it comes to offense, I want to specifically talk about the various combat arts. Most of them are just for show in my opinion, not really making a huge difference in the fight, but a cool option at the least. So instead of going over each of them, I'll briefly explain a few of my favorites. First off is Sakura Dance. Sakura Dance is in the middle of being just for show and actually useful. One counter that I left out earlier in the video was Lightning Reversal. Lightning Reversal does an insane amount of health as well as posture damage when done correctly. A unique thing about this combat art is that it can actually perform a lightning reversal, as well as being immune to sweep attacks. It can also be paired alongside items, ninjutsu, and prosthetic tools, which I will get into shortly. Next is Mortal Draw. Yeah, this thing is just broken. Ichimonji is a top tier combat art despite not requiring any spirit emblems to be used. Not only does it do good posture damage, but on hit it recovers a massive chunk of your posture. This combat art also has a second variation called Ichimonji Double, which takes everything great about the first version and adds another swing to it. Lastly is Dragon Flash, which is a long-range sword slash that can hit you from pretty much anywhere. Apparently, that's the shockwave dealing that much damage despite me being like 30 feet away. Do you know how much force you need to have behind your swing for them to feel the shockwave from 30 feet away? Before I end this video, there are 2 more features that I want to go over: the prosthetic tools and the revival mechanic. I personally barely use the prosthetic tools or really anything besides the basic sword attack in this game, but regardless, these tools can actually be game changing depending on the situation. There are 10 separate tools, each with their own unique variants as well as uses. What's nice about these variants is that most of them have their own unique uses that only exist with that variant of the prosthetic tool, not making them completely insignificant after upgrading. For example, the umbrella. It has a variant which protects against apparition attacks and another variant which protects against flame attacks. Lastly is resurrection. When dying in Sekiro, you are given the option to either die or revive at the cost of a resurrection node, which can be seen in the bottom left. You start with 1 but work your way up to 3 revives in total by progressing through the game. Your first revive is always free. After use, it can be restored by resting at an idol, though the other 2 must be recharged after use by killing enemies. What stops this mechanic from being game breaking is that after death, you cannot use another revive until you land a death blow, regardless of whether you have a fully charged revive node. The game prevents you from using this mechanic as a crutch, making you use revives sparingly and restricting their use until removing a boss's health bar, unless you decide to use an item. Sekiro's gameplay alone solidified it in my top 3 games of all time. I like to think of Sekiro as a really difficult rhythm game, and getting good at this game pays off with its satisfying and rewarding gameplay. The obstacles you face in this game are without a doubt challenging, but it never feels impossible, which is kind of expected for a Souls-like game. What separates this game from the other games in this genre is that it promotes aggression instead of patience. Even when defending, it's not passive. You're still actively dealing damage to the boss by perfectly deflecting their attacks, giving you this back and forth that I've never experienced in any other game. Though the game does have very little variety in its gameplay. The only variety that this game offers comes from combat arts and prosthetic tools. But I don't think this is a bad thing. It forces you to play in a way that allows you to get the most out of its gameplay. There's not much I would not do for a game whose combat is even remotely similar to this one's. If you have not played it yet, I highly encourage you to do so. Easily top 5 experiences I've ever had playing a video game.